Hey guys, welcome back. This is another segment of the question and answer. Today I'm going to be taking some of your questions off of the Facebook at Myvintageiron7512 on Facebook. A lot of these questions are like super long, so I can't really answer those. It'd take forever. A lot of pretty elaborate questions here, but I'm gonna look at a couple of these. This one is from Dean Cook. He says, hey, I'm building a 3D3 stroker and was wondering what kind of heads to run. I have a flat top with 2 valve reliefs. I have a 510 lift cam and was going to run 193 TBI heads, but have decided against them after seeing your video on YouTube. Yeah, good choice. Any help would be appreciated. Well, if you're going to build a 383 stroker engine, my advice would be to go with some type of an aftermarket head. I wouldn't go with factory heads. You know, if you're spending all the time and the money, you can build a 383 with factory cast iron heads, and some of those are okay. But especially if you're going to run pump gas, you can put Vortech heads on a 383 and they flow pretty good. But the thing about the Vortex on a 383 is they have a 64cc chamber. And so for a street motor, your compression is going to be pretty high, probably more than 10 to 1, which is going to be a problem for, you know, pump gas. So what I would recommend is an aftermarket head with probably a 70cc chamber, something by either Dart or RHS. And really what we like to see, so they size the intake runners in cc's. And what you want for a 383 is you want to run about a 200cc intake runner. On 350s you can get away with a 180cc intake, but you want about a 70cc combustion chamber volume to get pump gas compression ratio with a flat top, and you're going to want about a 200cc intake runner. So hopefully that helps you. All right, let's see what else we got here. This is from Bill Watson. He said, I've been watching your videos for a while. I have a question on stock cams with 1.5 rockers. Changing to a 1:6 rocker ratio, is it better or will it hurt it and cause the valve retainers to hit the valve guide seals? Okay, so what he's talking about is the rocker arms on your engine are going to multiply the lift of the cam, and you can get a larger ratio, which makes the valve open further. Generally on a stock crate motor with a mild cam, you can kind of get away with that. You can put a 1:6 rocker on, but the advantages to horsepower are really not going to be that great. You might notice a little increase, but here's the other thing is the stock springs may not be capable of handling the extra lift. So if you do go with a bigger ratio rocker, say like a 1:6 instead of a 1:5, you also have to check your springs to see if they're coil binding. And then the other thing is you have to check and see if the bottom of the spring retainer is going to smash into the valve seal or the valve guide, because that's always an issue too. If it's a totally stock cam and valve setup, you don't have to worry about that. But anytime you go with bigger lift, you got to check the clearances on the springs and the you know, the retainers and so forth. That's kind of standard procedure, so hopefully that helps. All right, let's see, what do we got here? Oh, that's way too long. Oh, Andrew Thomas. He says, what aftermarket Vortech head do you use on 383s? I don't. I don't see the Vortech head, mostly aftermarket. It's a replica of the factory Vortech head, and again, it has a 64cc chamber. You can use it on a 383, but you got to go with a pretty significant dish in the piston if you're going to run it on pump gas. Now, if you're going to run high octane fuel, then you can actually get away with it because you're going to have, you know, above 10 to 1. You're going to be out of the pump gas range. The best aftermarket Vortech head that I've found is made by a company called RHS, and RHS stands for Racing Head Services. And I'm plugging them right now. I probably should call them and ask them to give me some free stuff, but the RHS cylinder heads the Vortech heads are very good. They make, we've used them on the dyno quite a few times, and just in testing and stuff, they actually outperform some of the other aluminum, I'm not going to name them, but they're prominent. So the RHS Vortech, it's a cast iron head, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good for that motor. So, alrighty. What do we got here? No, too long, too long. Oh, okay, so this guy, this is from Wayland Rebecca Bradley. I don't know if that's one person's name or what this is, but it says, I want to say I love the 383 videos, so I have a question for you. You talk about rod length and what is good, but which is better, 6-inch or 5/7 connecting rod length for a 383? I'm thinking of building a stroker. You gave me a few choices. And I want to use a wicked cam with a 40 over bore. Okay, so the rod length issue is what's going to be better? Well, I mean, if you're going for all-out performance, obviously the 6-inch rod, the longer rod, is going to be better because you have less angularity and you also have more dwell time at the top of the cylinder. But the thing is, like you say, if you're going with a real radical cam, I'm going to say big duration, advertised duration of, 285, 290 or better, then you can get away with a 6-inch rod. If you're going to go with a milder cam, do not put a 6-inch rod in that thing because it heats up the piston too much. If you don't have a radical cam, you don't have pressure being bled off of the cylinder, and the piston gets hot and you have detonation. Even if you have lower compression, it can cause detonation with pump gas. It could be a real problem. So, but for an all-out motor with a radical cam, definitely go with a 6-inch rod. It's the only way to go. All right. Okay, so this is from Derek Gall. Do you have to do machine work on every set of aftermarket heads that you buy before you put them on? No. Would Chevrolet Performance aftermarket heads be the best aftermarket heads for the LS motor? A no and no. Chevrolet Performance heads are pretty good, but for an LS motor, there's several companies out there that are doing way better than what GM is doing, and probably at a comparable or maybe a better price. So I guess what he's asking here is, I talked in some of my videos about how that you buy aftermarket heads out of the box, and sometimes you got seats put in and there's mismatches in the ports and there's casting flaws and so forth. And I certainly think you need to check them out really good if you're buying aftermarket heads. But some of the higher end heads, especially like AFRs or a lot of the Dart stuff, you really don't have to do a lot of machine work on them. Although I will say this, I really don't like heads, aftermarket heads that are loaded. In other words, they come with the valves and the springs and everything, because a lot of times the valve jobs are pretty crappy. Now, if you're going with a Chevrolet Performance head, they're probably going to be pretty good on the valve job because, I mean, that's a factory OEM deal and it's a performance head. So you probably don't have to do any machine work. You can. I like to get if I'm gonna port or do any port work on the heads, we'll do a little bit of that and do a little bit of bowl blending and stuff. But if I'm going to go an all-out porting, I'm just going to get a set of AFRs or something that are fully ported, CNC ported. It's the only way to go. So, but if you're buying from GM Performance or a reputable company, not the cheap style heads, you can usually get away without doing any machine work. But if you buy the lower cost aluminum heads that are out there, man, you usually got to work the ports and stuff to make them really good. So, and definitely don't buy them, do your own valve job or have a valve job done. Okay, let's see what else we got here. way too long, man. These questions, you guys, you're writing me a book here. If you want me to read your question, it's got to be something I can. I have an 85 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme with a 307 5-liter V8. I was told that I could put a 350 heads on a 307 to give a little extra power. Yeah, no. So here's the thing. He's got an Oldsmobile 307. Okay, so the Oldsmobile 307. I mean, I don't know how to say this. I don't want to. Who asked this question? This is from Javant Quimbley. Yeah, I don't really I don't know really how to say this, but the 307 Oldsmobile was just a big turd. If you really want to get more power out of that Oldsmobile, you just put a 350 in it, or better yet, find yourself a 455, because I mean the size of those motors is pretty comparable, and they'll bolt in. That's probably the best thing you could do. The 307, I wouldn't waste any money on upgrading it, and putting 350 heads on it. The problem is that the 350 heads have a larger combustion chamber, and so, you know, even though the 350 head probably flows a little better, your compression ratio is going to be really low, like probably 7.2 to 1 or something like that. So no, putting 350 Oldsmobile heads on a 307 Olds, and a 307 Oldsmobile is basically a smog motor. It's one of those. It's a big, heavy motor with really small cubic inches and low compression, and just choked to death with smog. Really tiny cam, horrible heads. It's basically, you know, I don't know. I wouldn't mess with that motor, to be honest with you. Find yourself a good Olds 350, change the cam and get a good set of the 350 heads, and then you'll have something, or a 455, better yet. Other than that, just drive it, man. Don't even bother wasting your money modifying that thing. All right, I don't want to burst your bubble here. Okay, so this is from Alex Acosia. Alex T. Acosia. I have a set of 71C3 heads with the casting number 487. You didn't mention them on your best and worst heads with your limited time. Should I spend any cash on updating the valves? Okay, so the 487 is a pretty good head. It's an open chamber head. He says, I'm asking a friend, offered me a set of Dart cast iron heads for $300. Oh, dude, buy the Darts, man. Yeah, go with the Dart heads, definitely. If you get, because see, the thing is, those older heads, the 487 was an okay casting. It was an open chamber head with 76 cc's. So it wasn't a real high compression deal. To get decent compression out of it, you got to put a slight dome on the piston. So you're going to have to build your motor to do the valve and seat work. Plus it was pre-unleaded, so it has soft, you know, exhaust seats. You're going to have hardened seats put in, guides, the whole shot. You'll have, you know, $400 or $500 into those heads easily. And if you can get a set of Dart heads for $300, the Darts are probably better right out of the box than the 487's fully built and dressed and reworked. So yeah, definitely go for the Dart heads. That's my advice. This guy says, I have a, this is Matthew Witchy. I have a set of Vortech heads from a 97 Suburban. I wanted to know if it's worth bolting them to a 400 small block. No, I don't know why you guys keep wanting to do this stuff. Okay, so here's the thing. Vortech heads have a 64 cc chamber. If you're building a 383 or a 400 and you want to run the thing on pump gas, yes, they flow a little better than the stock heads, but the thing is, I mean, if you put a big dished piston in the 400, maybe, but they really, I mean, you can get them to work. They're going to put, it's going to put the motor right on the border of being able to run super unleaded or not, and you're going to have to restrict your timing, and you're going to have to really watch everything. It's just the compression ratio is just a little bit too high with that on the 400. I would go with a bigger chamber head like a Dart or an RHS or an Edelbrock or something, around 70 cc's. The 64 cc chamber is just too tight of a chamber for a 400. if you're gonna run pump gas. Now, I understand, there's guys that do it, but the thing is, timing is an issue and detonation. You gotta back your timing off to like 29 to 30 degrees to keep the thing from detonating. Well, it's better to go with a lower compression ratio and run more timing. So if you had a 70 or a 73 cc head on that 400, you could bump your timing up to 34 or 35 degrees, and that's going to actually give you more power, assuming the head's flowing well, than the higher compression will with restricted timing. So my advice is to go with a head that has a bigger chamber that flows good, and bump the timing up. It'll run better, so hopefully. Okay, so that's about all we have time for. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sifting through these. Now again, if you guys want to ask me questions, you can, but seriously, I mean, I've got questions on here, and it's like you wrote me a book. I'll read those and go through them and try to answer you the best I can, but if you want me to read the question on the air, it's got to be like a half a paragraph, and it's got to be right to the point. You can't give me your entire vehicle history and what's going on, right? So hopefully you understand that. So I appreciate you watching, and we'll do more of this. This is in the beginning stages. You know, I'll probably get better at it as I go. But if you have any questions, make sure you ask on Facebook at Myvintageiron7512, and I'll pick out questions and we'll do them in a future segment if the question is worthy of reading. So I appreciate it. Check out my YouTube channel, Myvintageiron7512, and Myvintageiron7512 on Facebook. Thanks for watching. I will talk to you soon.